AI is changing leadership faster than most people realize. The way that we think, the way we make decisions, and lead teams is totally shifting. But are you ready? Today, I'm sitting down with Amy, a best-selling author, digital wellness expert, and happiness researcher, to uncover what leaders need to do to stay ahead. So, Amy's going to break down three big ideas that every leader needs to understand. One, how AI is totally reshaping leadership. Two, how digital overload can silently kill your effectiveness. And three, the future proof of the leadership playbook. Make sure you stay till the end because she has a bonus for you. So, Amy, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, yes, I'm excited to dig in. I know you've worked with executives, with military leaders, actually just a really wide span of individuals. Can you take us back to a moment where you first saw how AI was really shifting just the whole leadership realm?
So, one story I remember in particular was about a year ago. I was invited to speak at Microsoft with Sherm, and the theme of the conference was AI and the future of humanity. And I remember being so nervous about coming to this conference because it's at the mecca of AI. All these Microsoft leaders and people who are at the top of their game, who I'm sure knew way more about AI than I did. And I was coming to talk about how we introduce happiness into the world of employee satisfaction, employee engagement. And so I gave a talk on the fear factor that many people are facing in terms of getting AI to be adopted by their workforce. And what I did not expect was two things. One was I did not expect that people would approach me in tears afterwards. I knew my conversation, I was trying to allay fears, I was trying to build up a sense of empowerment, but I was just amazed that leaders felt such a sense of displacement and fear about the future that they said, "Thank you so much for your message. I really needed to hear it, that there's hope and there's optimism." A lot of times we hear the negativity, and as leaders, we embrace that. The
Mhm.
second thing I didn't expect was later in the conference, one of the other speakers asked the 200 folks there about how many of them had actually used AI and dabbled with it. And only a third of the room raised their hands. So here we are at the mecca of AI, people at the top of their game, and two-thirds of the room had never touched AI. And so, of course, there were more fears because there was no framework and they were being held accountable in their businesses for creating something that they didn't even know the basic building blocks for. And so that really set up for me that sometimes we make assumptions that because someone's in a leadership role, that of course they know how to lead AI. And more so than ever, that is just an assumption I've taken a step back from and said, no, actually, all of us are learning together. We've got to upskill alongside, and there's no shame in saying, I don't know, I'm learning, because it's all coming at us so quickly.
Yes. Well, I was reading one of your articles you had written, and it was really talking about not having to be an expert in AI to use that. And I thought, wow, like that potentially is one of those fears that people have where they go, okay, if I don't fully understand it, then I'm gonna be reticent to jump in.
hmm Yeah, when we say, Hollywood for years has set us up to have this kind of fear response that AI sounds scary, it sounds complicated, it sounds technical. So if those are not things that you trend towards or feel comfortable with, then it can be something that you need a little nudge to say, okay,
Mhm.
just ease in. This is not going to be something like you're learning how to code. This is learning really just how to ask better questions. And when you
Mhm.
reframe the process in that way, I feel like people are much more likely to say, oh, okay, yeah, I'm ready to try that. And it just becomes part of our daily flow.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Well, I know, can you share a story of a leader that did adopt AI that kind of jumped in and, what did they do differently or what was something that someone could replicate?
One of the leaders I respect the most is John Whelan, who is the VP and CHRO for Yale University. And I met John at the conference at Microsoft, and John really blew me away because he was in full learning mode. He knew he needed to upskill in AI, and so he started to hold weekly coffee chats for other directors of HR at universities all over the country. And the coffee chat was not necessarily to have somebody have the answers or to figure everything out. It was more of a learning and sharing session. Like, what are you hearing? What are the newest things this week that we need to know about? Does anybody have any ideas of how you're applying this? And are there any good books that you're reading? Is there a good course? So that weekly coffee chat has really taken off, and it's such an informal mechanism. But what he is essentially doing is he is building his own knowledge repository in an ongoing way. He's created his own upskilling university, and he's helping other people in the process as well.
Oh, it's like a little incubator or accelerator. Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love it. Oh, so when we think about different ways that leaders can use AI, I think I've heard at least a lot of concerns about how we use it with decision making because they don't want to I don't want a machine to make the decision. But I've heard you talk about it being more of a partnership. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I really like that idea of thinking of AI as a partner. I've heard it called amplified intelligence. And with amplified intelligence, the idea is that you are just taking this tool and you're adding on to things that you're already thinking about. So instead of offloading your decision making, you're getting more information and helping think through and round out ideas. And so, to your question about what is one of the best ways leaders can use AI, I find in my own work that if I enter something that I'm working on, maybe it's a strategic plan, maybe I'm working on a thought piece or an article, I will specifically prompt AI to help me to think through some of the blind spots or to make a critique of what I'm arguing for. Because as a leader, of course, those are the things that we want to think through before anyone else brings them to us. So it's kind of a risk analysis measure. It's not that I'm having AI decide it for me, it's just poking holes in things that I didn't think through so that I can be a step ahead.
It's like the red team. Oh, I love it. So I know you do a lot of research on happiness as well. And you've talked about that there's these feelings of fear, of stress that are related to AI. And so, what does the scene of happiness tell us when it comes to how leaders need to sort of stay adaptable when we talk about AI?
So, over the last 19 years that I've been talking and reading and writing and researching about the science of happiness, I've noticed that there is this interesting trend where humans go in cycles, and they're actually very predictable cycles of fear or fascination or confusion. When I started initially starting to talk about the science of happiness in 2006, the topic on everyone's minds was happiness and the economy. How can we be happy in the midst of a recession? And then fast forward to 2013, 2014, that question turned to how can I be happy when social media is destroying the fabric of our society? Fast forward to 2020, it was happiness in COVID. Now in 2024, it became happiness in AI. And give it another year or two, and there will be another topic that will be on the public's mind at the top and at the forefront of their mind. And I think that what we notice is that when we are going through difficult situations, there's a sort of longing for understanding happiness. It's almost like you want to be convinced that there is another way because you're hoping that somebody else can give you that little bit of optimism you need to say, okay, there is a way forward. I'm
Yes.
finding the same thing is happening with AI though, in the sense that we've seen tech panic cycles happen every 15 years. A tech panic cycle is this moment where a new technology is introduced, and then the early adopters, of course, take off and are all about it. And then you have a whole group of, the average population who is a little slower to adopt, and then the laggards come behind. We've seen this with innovation over and over and over. But that tech panic comes before the majority of individuals have adopted. And we certainly saw that in the last year with AI and people worrying about lack of regulation and will superintelligence take over humanity and so I think that when we're processing what's happening in light of the fact that every innovation from the television, the phone, the radio, the printing press, all the way along, we've had this kind of reaction. So if we know we're going to react this way, well, how do we preempt it? And one of the things that I am pretty passionate about is that so many AI technologies are being introduced without any thoughtfulness to the human receptivity to it. We introduce a new technology, it's going to be great. Wait, why aren't you using it? We just spent all this money on the technology. Well, it's because you didn't prep people about what are they going to get out of it? How did they use it the best? What are their concerns? How can we really build this into the flow of what you're doing? And those kind of things are essential to keeping our employees engaged and keeping people happy about trying new technologies. And so I think that was my biggest takeaway is that if we want a happy workforce who's also building in AI, we've got to come alongside them, recognizing the human propensity for fear and helping guide people through it.
Yes. Well, I mean, in your book, and I'll make sure that I have the link to Amy's book below and talking about happiness, it was really interesting to see these quotes about, like, oh, the radio is gonna ruin people's lives, and it's just so it's interesting to see that our minds, how we process something new. Um, and I just took a note on my phone, like this concept of if you have a new tool as a leader, if you're not giving your people time to intentionally play with it and almost in that like setting where people can say, hey, here's how I used it, here's how you used it, well then it's just like, thanks for giving me another thing I have to learn on
Right.
top of my long laundry list of things.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to do that.
No,
So
it takes a
yeah.
lot of time. And that technology is moving so quickly at this point
Yes.
that to
Hmm.
keep up and to feel like you are in the flow of what's happening requires a substantial amount of time. I mean,
Hmm.
long ago,
Hmm.
Google introduced the 80-20 rule, where 20% of your time you were supposed to do something creative that might help spur your
Yeah.
work in other ways. I
Hmm.
would actually argue that moving forward, we need almost a 50-50 split on time in order to keep up. 50% for dabbling and learning and experimenting and continuing to try to speed up work in order to get to the output. That's a hard ask for a company or an organization who needs to get to the bottom line faster. But there is this
Hmm.
seismic shift happening now that we're finding if your organization is investing and spending the time and really upskilling and helping the people come alongside, then you are positioned to be so much more successful 1, 2, 3 years down the road compared to your peers who are not doing the same thing.
Yeah. So, what would you say to people who just feel distracted and overwhelmed, whether it's because of AI or just you mentioned social media? I mean, when we think about the digital realm and really what you do with your company, people just feel inundated.
And I think that attention economy concept, the
Mm.
idea that the technology that's being designed is really aiming to arrest our attention, that our
Mhm.
attention is incredibly valuable, so much so that companies are spending billions of dollars to try to create something that will cut through the noise to get your attention, to buy the app, to purchase the thing, to download the program. And in the midst of that, we have to protect our own minds. And I know no better way to do this than to marry the digital and the analog together.
Mhm.
And the number of friends that I have in the digital wellness space who use post-its as their primary source of brainstorming and organizing is astronomical. So they are
Yeah.
going from the digital and they're manually manipulating things off the screen. They might have post-its all around their screen, but they're trying to tactically balance because they know if I'm doing everything online, I'll get distracted. And so there's a lot of strategies from using a Pomodoro timer. I use one called Focus Timer to kind of help me stay focused. There's ideas of time boxing so that you literally plan out every minute of your day as opposed to trying to focus on tasks that you have to get accomplished, because it's very easy to get pulled out of your tasks when you are trying to do other things and then somebody comes in and interrupts you. If you can just block that time, you've got dedicated time. So what we're doing is we're taking the best of our analog and our digital worlds, we're combining it so that we can focus on what we need to do. And then I like to think of AI as kind of Super Mario Brothers power-ups. You remember in the old Super Mario game, if you got a mushroom, you got it, a little bit bigger and had extra life. For me, that is my speeding up moment. So I'm brainstorming for an article and then I'll pop it into ChatGPT to help me round out a few things, test it, look at my blind spots. I've sped up my ability to use that time box time more effectively. So I am becoming laser focused on how I think about tech, not distracting me, but helping me to be more intentional.
So I almost hear you say it's putting boundaries on it instead of just cutting it out. Because I know you've got some very people that are just like, okay, I'm gonna turn off my internet. I'm gonna do these things, and then you realize like, oh well, I don't know how to get to without GPS. I don't know how to get here. So it sounds great, but in reality.
So at the Digital Wellness Institute, we developed this model called digital flourishing. And it was based on this idea that as humans, we kind of swing between two different pendulums. One would be the side that is saying, I'm all in for technology, you get digitally addicted, you're on your email, you're constantly on your device. And then the other side we swing to is detox. I'm going to swear off social media. I'm going to go back to pen and paper only. And what we really want is to find that sweet spot in the middle, which we call digital flourishing. And the idea there is that you're in control of your technology, not the other way around. And so that moment where you feel like your notifications are driving your life, or you feel like you can't escape your technology, that's when you know you're a little bit out of balance. And so reclaiming your agency as a human to say, no, that's not who I want to be. I'm going to determine that this is how I want to act. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to accomplish it.
One of the things that we've talked about a lot in research is sometimes the most simple things are the most effective. So it doesn't have to be rocket science. So I'm curious to you, if I'm someone that feels overwhelmed and I'm trying to be a little bit less distracted, but I do want to partner with technology, what is your go-to list of some of the things that you find that are very helpful?
I have a whole laundry list of these because I use them all the time myself. I think even though I'm a digital wellness expert, I am constantly having to come back to these tiny habits that really help me to be the best leader I can be. The number one best thing we can do to cut through the noise and really decrease distractions is turning off notifications. This is fairly obvious, but one of the things you may not know is that every time you update your phone, you need to go back into your notifications to turn some more off. Because what happens is when you update your phone to the next operating system, they all turn back on again. And that can result in upwards of 350 notifications a day. And if you're thinking through the math on this, imagine it takes you 1 minute to check each notification. That's 350 minutes. That's almost 5+ hours of your day just responding and not proactively doing things. So the more you can cut that out, the clearer you think. The second thing that I love to do is based on something called the mere presence study. And the mere presence study says that the mere presence of a smartphone in your line of sight decreases your brain power by up to 10%. And the reason why is because when we have our phone in our line of sight, our eyes will continually to flicker over to see if we've received a message. Because it turns out that the most addictive quality of our devices is the need to be needed. And so think about that for a minute, the need to be needed. Do your employees need you? Your family need you? Does the world need you? What is it that drives you to look to your device? And the way that our phones have been designed is that they light up when a notification comes in. We know light is incredibly distracting. So the way that we deal with this is so simple. I literally take my device and I will hide it behind my laptop screen or my computer screen. So it's still there. I can still hear it. I can still get to it, but it's not flickering and it's not drawing my eye so that I can really focus in. These are simple strategies, but they're really helpful for just building that sense of control over your environment that we all know is so crucial.
Oh, yes. It's really interesting because it's just one of those things where you realize, oh my gosh, like with some of the analytics that have come out on our technology and it lets you know screen time or how often you check something, it's it's a little bit humbling to see how many times like I checked my Gmail, which I didn't think I had an addiction to, but it's probably borderline. So
It's a lot, but you know, for some of you out there who are data geeks like myself, it can be really helpful to go into your screen time settings and see what you're currently doing on your device and think about where you want to get to. So a lot of times I'll ask audiences to say, okay, I want you, before you ever go look into your settings, to tell me what you think your top 5 apps are and how long you think you're spending on those 5 apps. And then you go into your settings and you gut check and see, were you close or was it wildly off? I would say
yeah.
95% of the time we are wildly off. And that is only one device. But if you think about the fact that we have our phones and our laptops and our desktops, our video games, we have our television, we have all these screens. And so really getting a clear picture of your screen time is very difficult. I'm not even going to recommend that. What I want you to do is to think about this as a goal setting strategy about how you set your intentions, about how you want to spend your time, build your awareness. But one of the things that shifted in digital wellness in the past year or two is less of a focus on how much time you're spending on screens, because let's be honest, that just makes us feel guilty and bad and feel like you're playing this losing game where you have to be on devices and yet you don't want to be all the time. So instead, think about it like, what are you doing when you're on your device and what are you doing when you're off your device? Are you ever off your device? That's the first question. Are you ever off of it? When you are off, are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? Are you hanging out with your friends? Are you doing the self-care strategies we know that are vital? And if you are in balance there, you should feel really good. If you're out of balance, it might be time to recalibrate, but don't focus so much on the number and the minutes. Focus on the intention and the output.
I love it. Just that concept of aligning your values, right? Because if you are someone that's on YouTube for your work, then of course you're going to be on there more so.
Yeah. And the guilt is real. Nobody wants to be phone police, especially for themselves. And we don't want to feel like we're constantly in a losing battle. That doesn't feel like there's a win-win. So there's another way to think about it. And I think it can be way more empowering.
Oh, that's powerful. I'm gonna make sure it's a great thing just to even I'd recommend, if you're listening to this, to just take a moment to do exactly what Amy said. Like, let's think about your last 5 apps, or even you can put in the comments, like, what's something that you feel is potentially drawing you back or distracting you away from something that is important to you.
Absolutely. It's a funny, there's this opportunity cost equation that we're constantly having to think about. And I hadn't really put it together myself until my husband called me out and he said, Amy, one of the things that you'd love to do on your device is read. I'm a huge reader. I'm always on my Kindle. And he said, it's great that you're spending so much time reading. That's nothing wrong with that, except that you're not spending time with me. And I thought, oh, it's not that I have to give up reading. It's that I had not calibrated. I needed to spend a little more time with my loved ones and a little bit less time reading. And that was a great call out. So thinking about it like that, like what kind of trade-offs are you making and which ones do you want to be making in the balancing scheme?
Yes, especially in what season of life you're in too.
Yeah, for sure.
So looking ahead, what skills do you think that future leaders are going to need to have that potentially they're neglecting or just underdeveloping right now?
So, the last decade, maybe 2 decades of leadership development skills have really been grounded in hard skills, having some sort of technical skills that enabled you to do your job. And of course, we've always talked about leadership, people skills, the softer skills. But now that AI has entered the picture, one of the things that I've been fascinated with and I've been spending a lot more time writing about is this idea that if you think about Howard Gardner once came up with this theory of multiple intelligences, right? There's 8 different kinds of intelligence: spatial intelligence and emotional intelligence and, equation computational analysis. I started looking at that list of the original 8 intelligences, and I realized that a number of them have already been superseded by AI. Our computational skills actually are
Yep.
paling in comparison as of today for the future. So I wouldn't recommend doubling down on the computational skills. I would double down on how you can leverage technology to make use of this powerful tool. And the same way we did with the calculator back in the day, right? It's not about not doing the math, it's about doing the math smarter, better, and more efficiently. So one of the things I've been writing about is that I think the soft skills of today are going to become the hard skills of tomorrow. And they are skills that we have known about for quite some time, but they're things like emotional intelligence. They are adaptive reasoning. It's the ability to collaborate with other individuals, with humans and with AI. It's the ethical insight, being able to think through morally what should happen, and unconventional creativity. We know AI can be creative, but we also know that the best creativity that comes out of AI starts with human ideas and evolves from there. And if you want to test this, you can ask AI to write an essay. It will look very formulaic. If you write an essay first and then ask AI to help you, it takes on a whole different level of quality. And so as leaders, I am really encouraging individuals to think through how can we double down on these uniquely human skills, knowing that AI is going to introduce a whole different way of approaching problems and outputs and projects. And, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about as well is that we often think about K-12 education being the fundamental grounding for our future work life. But I think what's happening with AI is we are shifting towards what I would call K100. We're not just going K-12 anymore. We've got to be lifelong learners. We get to be lifelong learners because this is an evolving field, and it's not like you've learned and then you're done. It is a constant process of building off of rapidly developing technologies so that you can do all the amazing things like solving cancer and getting rid of world hunger and trying to solve for climate change. We need these skills, but the way that we're going to get the best out of AI is by using our human ingenuity to do so.
Well, you just encouraged me because it means how I heard that was I don't ever have to take a math class again since AI can,
You might need some basics, but
I know
then
you've got 3 girls in school, so they're gonna listen to this and say like, well, mom said we don't have to do
peace
math
out.
anymore.
I have a senior this year, and she is applying to business school. So her college advisor said that she needs to take calculus because that's what business schools need. And I had this whole moment internally. I didn't tell her this yet, but I said, why?
Yeah.
Some of the business leaders need to know how to do calculus, but what we really need to know is the fundamentals and then how to get
Yes.
AI to do the calculus that is so far more sophisticated than I was ever going to learn in high school, and then be able to use that as a launching point. But a whole year of calculus skills might be replaced by, a half a year of skills and a half a year of application. And
Basic.
that's going to change education, the way that we partner
Yeah.
with global change organizations and creating impact assessments in the future. And I'm excited about that because
Yeah.
it means less calculus.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I'm curious how your girls are using AI to help them, like to augment in their learning, especially with you as a mom, kind of helping them through that.
Yeah, initially when the school year started, the school was anti using AI. And I think it came from a place of fear
Yep.
that AI was going to lead to cheating. And what we've now learned, there's been a number of reports that have come out now saying that AI has been incredibly helpful in tutoring. It's been amazing for helping kids to stay in school longer. It
Mhm.
is better at explaining concepts because not all teachers are created
Yes.
equal. And so, what the school began to implement was a green, yellow, red system. So, some
Mhm.
assignments you were allowed to use AI, some use AI with caution or after brainstorming, and then red
Mhm.
was this needs to be your own work. And I like that system
Mhm.
as a starting place. But at home, I want the kids to use AI and I teach them the things I'm learning on a regular basis, and they're starting
Mhm.
to teach me things because
Yes.
that's how we prepare them for the future. And
Yeah.
shutting off AI because we're afraid of cheating is actually cheating our kids of a
Yeah.
really important learning opportunity.
Mm. That's fascinating, and it's something in the military echelons, working with mid-level leaders. We did a training with them, and then they went back to their younger leaders, and they were like, "Oh, we learned how to use this," and they were practically, rolling their eyes like, "Yeah, duh," like, catch up. But it then created this like more of a synergy of, hey, tell me how you're using it, what are these different ways. Something I found really interesting, because you're talking about soft skills, and obviously AI does hard skills much better. But I'm curious your thoughts on this. I've seen someone that's using AI to help them to a little bit with their soft skills. Like they know that they're a very abrupt person, they like to be very direct. And so they've been thinking about, okay, how can I send emails, or how can I even, when I'm communicating with people, do so in a way that it's a little bit more receptive.
Mhm.
And they've actually had some success with it. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's been a lot of reports that AI is doing a really good job. If you prompt it to think with emotional intelligence or to
Mhm.
um, soften your reply or to make your
Pick up the
argument more to
emotion,
the
or
point, it
burn
can be
my
really helpful.
email.
It's funny, my husband and I had this argument a few months ago, and you know those moments where you know your partner is tired, and yet
Mhm.
you're like, I have no compassion for this. Like, this is unacceptable. So I hit that point and I went to ChatGPT and I was like, look, I know my husband's tired, but he's saying this and it's really offensive. What do I say in reply? I literally copied and pasted the reply and it de escalated what could have become a multi
Mm.
hour argument
Yeah.
into a quick resolution. And
Mm.
that was such a learning lesson for me that I've now used it in parenting. I've
Yeah.
used it in employee conversations and performance
Mhm.
evaluations just to get my own thoughts organized, to
Yeah.
hear the tone. And it's not perfect. Of course, you have to read through it, but that's the whole idea behind super thinkers is that we can't just let AI be the end result.
Yeah.
We need a whole cadre of really smart humans who can say, this is actually more empathetic or less empathetic. This is more to
Yes.
the point or less. And I need to
Mhm.
oversee this. And in order to oversee it, I've got to learn how to use this to the
Mhm.
best of its ability.
Yeah.
And so I think some of the organizations and the individuals and leaders I work with have had the attitude, oh, I'm going to take AI and I'm going to delegate my intern to go learn more about this and report back to me or bring me a few solutions. And then that way we can speed up this process. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I think is important for super thinkers is to actually jump in yourself, not to
Yeah.
delegate understanding of AI, but to literally get in the mental sandbox and play
Mhm.
a little bit yourself to understand the factors, to understand how do you use these. Try it out in your personal life. Try it in some of
Mhm.
your like thorny relationships and conversations and see what the output is and how what it's teaching you about yourself so
Mhm.
that in the future you might be more empathetic when you're not using AI. It's just a different frame of the way that you're approaching
Mhm.
problems.
Mm. That's a really great takeaway. I think that it's very tempting. I've seen companies and organizations that have delegated AI to the tech. I said, okay, that's a tech thing, and it's really failed.
Mhm.
So kind of thinking through all right, I need to jump into it. I need to make that time. And then it's okay to once again get in those collaborative spaces and then just, hey, all right, I'm not failing, I'm learning, right? There's definitely times where I've gotten weird responses from prompts and then someone will say, well, ask this instead, and then it unlocks. So
Hmm. And I think sometimes what happens as well with iteration on AI is that the conversation, the argument, the output, it gets a little bit muddy. So being
mhm.
able to know how many iterations you can make before it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, seeing where it doesn't make sense, and then how to fix that and how to preempt it is a skill set that is part of upskilling in AI. It's not just asking questions, it's not just opening the tool, but seeing
Mhm.
where the tool is right and wrong, what it's teaching us, what we could learn, what we could teach it better to learn. So really it comes back to that partnership idea of like think
Mhm.
of it like like your own intern that you've got to
Yeah.
train up, but
Yeah.
it's not going to make all the decisions. You've got to make
Yeah.
them yourself.
Yes, everyone needs an intern.
Yes.
Well, Amy, I have a couple of lightning round questions for you. So, what is an AI tool you cannot live without?
I've tried a lot of them. I keep coming back to ChatGPT.
Oh, yes.
I just I know there's many more specific models, but it's been flexible
Yeah.
enough and it's been a game
Mhm.
changer in terms of my creativity and output as well.
Perfect. What do you think is the most overrated leadership tech?
Hmm. I might get in trouble for saying this, but Salesforce.
Okay. Not
I,
attributable. Not
I
attributable.
think Salesforce is bloated, clunky, and time consuming to get the kind of
Mhm.
results that most people need. So I feel like there's other ways and systems to go about it.
What is one digital habit to break immediately?
I would say, let's see, one digital habit to break immediately is looking at your phone first thing in the morning. I am
Mm,
trying a new habit right now, which is that I won't touch my phone for the first 5 minutes of the day. I might turn off an alarm and then I put it down because the temptation is to sit in your bed and start reading. You might pick up the news or work. And what that does is send your cortisol right up through the roof to start your day. So give yourself 5 minutes. The
mm.
sneaky strategy here is that if you give yourself 5 minutes, you'll probably give yourself 20. So you begin to build this habit of being mindful first, setting your intentions, and then taking on the world after.
Oh, I love it. Best time of day for deep leadership thinking.
For me, the
Mhm.
morning,
Okay.
but it differs by the individual and the things that are going on in their life, as well as what time zone you're in. So if you are in Hawaii, you might be up at the crack of dawn, but I think that you've got to learn your own system, your own vibe, and when you do your best work, whether it's daytime or in the middle of the night, roll with it.
Yes. And then last question, if you had to choose more AI or less digital distraction, which one would you
Oh,
choose?
more AI. Oh,
Or
wait.
combo.
Hold on. Let me think about this. Less distraction. Oh, no. Okay, I'm going to reverse that. I'm going to say I would
Okay.
love less digital distraction in my
Okay.
life. I can deal with a little AI, but
Yeah.
to be able to have my focus, that
Yeah.
is everything.
Hmm. Yep. I mean, it's one of those things where we always feel like we're distracted, and that pulls us from the things that are important to us. So.
Absolutely.
Um, I did say that you were going to give us a bonus hack that ties perfectly into it. So, what is your strategy, science based, that really can help us reset our minds and regain clarity? Whether it's something where we in the day where we just feel like it's going down, right? Or um, what would you say? Hey, if you do this, you can kind of recenter quickly.
And you want a digital hack or it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. Oh. Mhm.
Okay, my new hack, and this might sound weird, but I like to sit on the floor.
Oh.
I literally, some people call it grounding, but I find that it is a shift in perspective and
Mhm.
a relaxation that helps me not only to de-stress, but there's just something different about being able to work on the ground, to think a little bit more creatively and outside the normal box. So try that. Try some time to just ground yourself sitting on the floor. cross-legged, do whatever meditation, take a moment to breathe and
Yeah.
think and just be, and then you can go back to your desk. But it really helps with shifting your focus.
Oh, I had a boss that used to lie down in the office and I was always like, are you okay? And they're like, yeah, I'm just breathing. It's like, okay.
Amazing. You should try it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it has been great to talk to you today. I know that you have a lot of great resources. So, where are places that people can go if they want to learn more about your work, whether it's digital wellness, happiness? I know that you obviously publish quite a bit as well. So,
Yeah. So I maybe three different locations here. So the digitalwellnessinstitute.com has a plethora of resources related to digital distraction and digital balance. My
mhm.
website is where you can find out more about super thinkers and the other books I've written, which is amyblankson.com. And the third would be my Forbes blog, which is where my latest, greatest thoughts are being put out into the world, or LinkedIn as well. So Forbes or LinkedIn for Amy Blankson.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you. I will make sure that these are down below for you to easily do that as well. So thank you so much for being on, and listeners, thank you for learning about a little bit about AI today and how you can be maybe just a little bit less distracted. So.
Peace.